President Bush today making a new effort to win over opponents of his amnesty legislation. President Bush now offering to spend an additional $4 billion to secure the border. But one leading opponent of the president's amnesty plan, Congressman Duncan Hunter, a presidential candidate, blasting the offer. Congressman Hunter said border security shouldn't be conditional on amnesty. Suzanne Malveaux reports from the White House.
In a desperate effort to get immigration reform through Congress, President Bush is offering this compromise. Pass the bill, and immediately nearly $4.5 billion will go to strengthening the border.
The need for reform is urgent.
The urgency in securing the border is a transparent effort by Mr. Bush to convince his critics, mostly conservatives of his own party, that the government is serious about border enforcement. A senior administration official involved in the negotiations says this compromise is meant to address the mistakes of the immigration bill signed in 1986.
Most Americans agree that the 1986 immigration law failed. Didn't work. It failed because it did not secure our border.
White House aides say the money would initially come out of the U.S. Treasury to create this $4.5 billion account. The account would be paid off using the fees and penalties collected from the nation's 12 million illegal immigrants over a 2-year period.
Think of it a direct deposit right now on border security.
But with no idea of how many illegal immigrants are really in the United States or how many would comply with the law and pay penalties, even White House aides acknowledge they're not certain the numbers would add up.
You're absolutely right. No 100% guarantee here, but it is based on the best estimates.
But for some Republicans, any funds for border security that are tied to illegal immigrants becoming U.S. citizens is unacceptable.
The security of American borders should not be conditioned on amnesty.
Now, Lou, despite Congressman Duncan Hunter's reservations, and he obviously says he is not in support of this plan, those aides who I spoke with, White House aides, say they are confident that the president believes that this immigration reform bill will move forward. And the one reason they say this is because the president addressed what most of the Republicans were concerned about when they met behind closed doors on Tuesday with the president, and that is whether or not this administration would commit the resources to enforce the immigration, the laws, the border there. And they believe that this $4.5 billion will add to what has already been requested, the $12 billion for border security, and that will help in actually making this kind of support, building the support from the Republicans. Lou?
I just have to ask you if the aides to this president are keeping a straight face as they are saying these things, because such an offer, particularly since there's already authorization to construct fence, to put up all sorts of barriers. The last count I had was 11, perhaps as high as 13 miles of a fence had been constructed in just about 7 months. Does this president think that the opponents of amnesty in the Senate are stupid, or does he just believe the American people are stupid?
You know, I think he doesn't see either group as stupid. I think what he sees is that there's some people whose minds he's never going to change and never convinced that there will be something he'll propose that they will never agree to. What they are convinced, however, is that there are two things that they've done here, that they've provided more funds. We don't know, they're fuzzy numbers, so we don't know what kind of money that means when it comes to the border security. But they've also allowed something to happen, and that is to put it out faster. If you went through the appropriations process, it would take longer. This way, they say, pass the bill, we'll have immediately at least some funds available for border security. Lou?
Suzanne, thank you very much. Suzanne Malveaux from the White House. Amnesty is just part of the problem for this president and the Democratic leadership of this Congress. Now running hard in place for the bottom of public opinion polls, their approval ratings are simply tumbling. Are you ready? Less than 1 in 5 Americans believe this country now is headed in the right direction. The latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows even Republicans are now abandoning President Bush. His job approval rating has dropped to 29%. That is a new low for this president. In a poll of polls showing the president down across the board, an average approval rating of 32%. The new Democratic Party-controlled Congress does even worse in the Wall Street Journal NBC poll. Its ratings lower than the president by some considerable margin, plummeting to 23%. The CNN poll of polls gives Congress an average job approval rating of just 26%, still well below the president's levels and just about the same margin. Congressional approval ratings look like a roller coaster from 41% at the beginning of 2005, plunging to an all-time low of 16% last October. And the latest Rasmussen poll shows 34% of Americans say President Bush is doing a good job, while 19% think Congress is doing a good job. Pro-amnesty senators tonight reaching a tentative agreement to revive their amnesty legislation, but it is unclear whether the Democratic leadership supports their efforts. Dana Bash has the report from Capitol Hill. Dana?
Well, Lou, right now, senators who are trying to revive the immigration bill say they are on the verge of a breakthrough that they hope could bring immigration back to the Senate floor by next week. Now, as we speak, the Democratic and Republican leader in the Senate are meeting behind closed doors to figure out whether or not that can happen. Now, last week, you remember, the immigration bill collapsed because opponents of the bill said that they simply weren't given an opportunity or enough opportunities to change things that they didn't like. So what we are told that negotiators have tentatively agreed upon is a list of about 20 amendments for these opponents to offer to this bill if it comes to the floor. And what negotiators hope is that by giving senators, opponents on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, a chance to amend the bill this way, that could give them the 60 votes they need in order to bring immigration back to life. Now, to be clear, if this does come back to the Senate floor, it does not mean this kind of breakthrough would mean that this bill would pass. It also does not mean that these negotiators are going to get people who are ardently opposed to this on board. For example, Lou, Senator Jeff Sessions, I spoke to him earlier today. He made very clear he's going to do everything in his power to block this bill, no matter what kind of amendments come up. And essentially what the Democratic and Republican leader are talking about right now, as we speak, is a way to get around people like Senator Jeff Sessions. Lou?
To get around Jeff Sessions. What about the idea that they would try to listen to Jeff Sessions and to Jim DeMint and Claire McCaskill and Byron Dorgan, a host of other people? I was laughing as Suzanne Malveaux was reporting on the president's, frankly, just sort of bald-faced effort to put $4 billion out in front of people and call that border security. I mean, this is laughable to talk about this as a breakthrough. This is the same gang, the grand bargainers, trying to pull the same nonsense.
Well, as I said, when use the word breakthrough, what these senators are talking about when they say breakthrough, it is just a way for them to get this bill back to the floor, back for debate, back for amendments, and back for discussion, and chances, again, for opponents, Democrats and Republicans, to try to change things that they don't like in this bill.
That makes that, one of the things that makes that a little difficult. I mean, we've got a real good, strong glimpse of the good faith on the part of these grand bargainers, because it was Senator Trent Lott, the Republican whip in that Senate, Dana, who said of those amendments that they could be pitched in the trash before they get to the rotunda. That doesn't make it sound like a very good faith, straightforward, honest, transparent effort, does it?
Well, I talked to some senators who are very worried about this. For example, like Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison of Texas today. She is not somebody who is going to support this unless she is sure that she gets a couple of very strict amendments on this. She said that she does think, at least for now, that these negotiators were working in good faith, at least to give people like her, people who are very concerned about this bill, the opportunity to amend it. But we'll see. Look, as Suzanne was saying, everybody here knows, from the president to negotiators here in Congress, they're not going to be able to please anybody. So at least right now what they say they're trying to do is at least revive the debate.
Revive the debate. And some debate it has been, not marked by either depth or honesty or straightforwardness. And it is no small, to me at least, great shock anyway, that the poll ratings for the people that you're covering there on Capitol Hill are below that of this president. I would think it would be somewhat troubling to them, but it doesn't appear to affect the way they want to do business. Dana Bash, thank you very much from Capitol Hill. That brings us to the subject of tonight's poll. We would like to know, just straightforwardly, do you trust this president and this Congress to secure our borders and ports? Yes or no? We'd love to hear from you on this. Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results for you here later in this broadcast.